Welcome to Pack Leader Forums. Please do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. This is your daily dose of Scrum. We're going to go ahead and jump right into today's lesson. So I had a little situation come up at work where we are looking to basically containerize or basically easily report on a number of work items that span across multiple projects. As usual, most people will try to use labels for this purpose. I highly recommend you guys to not use labels wherever possible. It's usually best if you can containerize your work items under an epic, a feature, or even using components. Let's take a look at today's video from Jira, which kind of focuses on those three items: components, tags, and then also, components, labels, or epics. Let's jump right into it.
Is where Atlassian's project management product, Jira, comes into play. As Atlassian partners, Modus uses Jira to track and manage our projects. One of the more common questions that come up about Jira is what's the difference between epics, components, and labels, and when's the right time to use them? Let's break it down. Epics are simply containers that are filled with user stories.
I'll stop it right here really quickly, guys. I love the fact that they call this out. This is kind of how I describe epics as well, and sometimes even features. It's often difficult to sort of picture in your head how we should frame or define an epic, a feature, but really the best way to describe it is it's a container of work items, right? Um, you should be able to pick those containers based on things that are meaningful to the business and to the stakeholders that are reporting on those items, and they should mean something to those audience members. Um, I would say it's probably one of the biggest points is to always make sure that you have a good understanding that basically epics are containers.
Stories and track details for a particular body of work. Use them to capture large pieces of work, provide a high-level description of the work that will be done, and share with the team and stakeholders. Unlike components and labels, epics are issue types. Setting up an agile board for epics allows stakeholders to track stories at a high level and observe their child issues. Components.
Really quickly, guys, before we move on to components, I always recommend, if you can, instead of using labels, try to consider using other containers. So other containers are epics, solution epics, portfolio epics, features. It's probably best to contain things in this way so that you get a better top-down view of all the work that's entailed underneath that particular parent work item. And typically the reason why we're labeling something is so we can quickly find it, reference it, and show it and display it on our board and on our teams.
Are a great way to create sections within a project. You can use them to align issues within a project that share common technologies or feature sets, like user database or e-commerce. A very nice feature of components is the ability to set a default assignee for a particular component type. This helps to self-manage work and highlight the person who's the component lead.
Components are really good too, guys. So components is it's a thing inside of Jira that you can use to sort of categorize your work, right? It's similar to creating a label or using like tags and ADO, except think of more components as like adding your applications or your products and services that your teams are working on, right? So if you work for Apple, for example, you may have several components underneath Apple. Like think of all the components within your phone, like maybe the Wi-Fi division or the apps division or hardware, right? So those end up becoming components, and you can categorically sort your work based on component. The only downside with component is that it requires the selection of a component for every single story or issue type that you're creating, and sometimes that can be a little bit cumbersome. But for the most part, teams who use components tend to use it because they have multiple products within their team that they are responsible for supporting, and they kind of want to make sure that they're able to organize that work a little bit better and display it better during their DSUs.
One pitfall of this is that, by default, the component lead is also the project lead for all components. The project admin can update to an appropriate role as needed. Labels, as the name implies, can be thought of as tags or keywords. They add flexibility by allowing you to align issues that are not under the same epic or story. Anyone can add labels to an issue, as long as the label field is available in the issue. Where components are a structured grouping, labels are more of a free association that can be used by anyone for any purpose, and allow for simple querying and reporting.
He did just bring up a good point. So when it comes to labels, if there is no way that you can categorically stack your work items underneath a parent work item or underneath a common parent work item, this would be a good example of where, and also you're not able to use components as well, because perhaps those work items live on a different team's board, and components are based on project only, right? And so you wouldn't be able to use it there either. This would be a good way to sort of group items together or to quickly query items that can't fit underneath the same work item container, such as an epic feature, solution epic, or B, span across multiple projects. That is the only instance in which I would recommend using a label. And even when that happens, right, I always try to challenge the Scrum Masters and the RTEs to sort of think about the cross-platform or cross-functional team aspects of certain delivery components, right? And so when we have this in the future, how do we better manage this, right? Are we able to create those epics if we had known better initially to sort of group and categorize those things more properly, right? Now, the projects, that's always going to be a separate thing where things exist on different teams' project boards. That is kind of something that's pretty much the inevitable.
One pitfall of this is that it can sometimes create numerous spelling, capitalization, or grammar variations. All three of these Jira features are
That's a really, really big point. Sorry for stopping again, guys, but I can't stress this enough. I really try to turn teams away from using labels because of that exact reason, right? So let me just go back here a little bit. Here's the issue that you have with labels, right? Often you misspell labels. Often teams use labels for any reason. Anyone could actually assign an existing label to one of their work items, and perhaps maybe they weren't supposed to use that for their work item. There's just a myriad of factors, right? And for the actual Jira admin teams, this becomes a nightmare to manage too. As these things don't go away, you'll end up having a whole slew of tags that are no longer being used or are no longer active or are misspelled or are not suited correctly for purpose.
All three of these Jira features are a fantastic way to manage, monitor, and report on work being done in your project. But like any tool, they can be misused or misunderstood.
Oh, yeah.
To read more about the pitfalls of each of them, check out our blog, Using Epics versus Components versus Labels.
Well, that was it, guys. I hope you enjoyed our first episode of Daily Scrum. I hope to do a couple of these a day just until we really get the ball rolling. I'm also looking for people who are interested in collaborating, other agile practitioners. Would love to do some panel discussions and really kick the tires in this thing and start off this revolution. All right, we are Pack Leader Forums, and we'll catch you on the next video. Peace.